Dan wil ik dus gewoon maar beginnen. Mijn naam is... ik ben één van de mensen achter Friends for Change. Ik zal er daar nog iets meer over zeggen. Maar ik wil u eerst van harte welkom heten vanmiddag hier bij dit gesprek met Irving Laszlo. We zitten, anders zouden we wel gaan staan, omdat de heer Laszlo heeft last van zijn voet. Dus we hebben maar even een setting gekozen waar ik zelf mee rondliep op dat moment. Ik heb hem toen benaderd en gevraagd of hij het goed vond dat wij ons zouden inspannen om te kijken of we in Nederland meer bekendheid kunnen geven aan zijn gedachten, aan zijn werk, aan zijn boeken. Want wij denken dat dat belangrijk is, dat Nederland daar ook, ik zou maar zeggen, rijp voor is. Dat mag de opkomst wel. He is among others the founder and president of the Club of Budapest and chair of the World Wisdom Council. He is the founder and director of the General Evolution Research Group. He is the author and co-author of more than 50 books, which are translated in more than 20 languages. I could continue. There's a long list of things I could mention, but I'll stop here. It's time to give the floor, because that's where you came for, to Professor Irving Laszlo.
This works? This works? No. Okay. Okay. Well, actually, I'm going to stand up.
Okay. Do we have this one?
I can't speak sitting down. I can answer questions sometimes, but to speak, I have to see you, and hopefully you can see me also, You have to... Where to...
My phone doesn't work.
That also helps.
Oh, yes.
The red button? Yes.
Yeah, it's
okay. Now?
Yeah.
Now. Okay, fine. Okay. So, the reason for all these preparations is because some 35 years ago I was skiing in Switzerland and I broke my ankle, and every once in a while there's a change in weather, something changed, and all of a sudden it starts hurting, And so then I should not put too much weight on it, should wait a little bit, should be careful with it. And it just happened yesterday, so today I have to be careful. Okay. First of all, very many thanks to Gamma Crimes and all of you who are organizing this meeting for getting us together. It's a very important thing to have involvement for people, for young people, everybody who is considers himself or herself a citizen of our planet, to get together, to inform ourselves, to learn from each other, and to try to see what we can do. The time is short, and it's very urgent that we learn something to do. What I was doing up till about 30 minutes ago is reading a file, reading a paper that I got from an anthropologist whose name is José Argüelles. He was the discoverer of the Mayan calendar. In 1986 he wrote the book The Mayan Factor, and that's the first serious treatment of the time count, of the way the Mayans counted time, and why they believe that the end of 2012 is going to be a major shift. So we have written a little book to which Gorbachev and Deepak Chopra has written an introduction, and Argüelles, that I've asked him a short while ago to write, and afterwards he just did, and I just got it by internet today, and I was very pleased to read this, because he describes exactly why that we should think about the end of 2012 as a phase change, as a change toward a new consciousness. And that's a major point. It's not often people think that, this forecast, this prophecies is the end of the world, or is something completely a different kind of a world. Yes, it's different, but why? Because there is going to be a more, what he calls a noospheric consciousness, a consciousness of more forming a whole system around the Earth, forming an information field around the Earth, something that I've been calling a Akashic field. The Mayans have thought of that a little bit before me, you see, some time ago. And Teilhard de Chardin was talking about it, so this Arguelles makes the connection between the Akashic field, is based on quantum physics and the new sciences, new cosmology, and the Mayan calendar. We both talk about the idea of human consciousness can open up and can connect so that we are becoming more like one organism. Not physically organism, because we remain individuals, but we become more connected with each other, and we feel more part of each other, and part of the biosphere, and part of the cosmos, actually. So this is a very interesting, significant factor. All our work, then I'll get down to a little presentation for you, just to preface it, all our ideas, our projects for the next 3.5 years are going to be based on this concept, World Shift 2012. And that was before I met Arguelles, etc., you know, still, but because I recognized, and some of my colleagues around me, Jim Lovelock among the others, you know, the discoverer or the author of the Gaia theory, the biologist, also came up with the notion that the time to make changes is very, very short. Because if you take individual trends in account, these dangerous trends, you'll find that about the end of the century, you know, and something is going to something critical might happen if you don't change. Then they started talking about the middle of the century. Then lately they started talking about 15 to 20 years, this trend. Everything, whatever you look at drought, you know, dryness, the lack of rain in Australia or in Africa. You look at the threat of the water level rising, you know, sea level rising. You look at the atmospheric pollution. All these forecasts have been shortened. And Jim Lovelock points out, and I think he's entirely right, that if you look into the connections between the different trends, how one thing affects another, you know, then the time is still more critical, because then it will be enough to have any one trend reach a critical phase, what we can call a chaos point, you know, this bifurcation phase. Any one trend, and it can trigger a whole series of other crises, because we are so close. The financial crisis is just one of the things, you know. And it's, even if you pump more money into the economy and bail out Lehman Brothers, is too late, Bear Stearns is too late, but we'll bail out Citicorp and General Motors and whatnot, you know. But that doesn't mean the end of that crisis, because the economy is a very delicate shape, and any shock that happens to the world, whether it's an ecological shock or economic shock, you know, it's likely to provoke further these critical points. So when you look at all of these, it's a coincidence, or maybe it isn't a coincidence, that the critical time for humanity on this earth, a time for transformation, may be within 3 or 4 years, which coincides with the Mayan idea. So I'm not an esoterist, I don't believe in everything that is being told, but it's very interesting that not only in the Mayan calendar, in the Hopi calendar, in anthroposophy, in astrology itself, the end of 2012 is seen as a critical time. So as long as we have this concept, it's almost like an archetype. It's something that's in the collective consciousness, that we have a critical period ahead of us. Let's concentrate on that. And let's say, okay, let's not make that a prelude to disaster. Let's make it a point, a takeoff point for transformation, for positive transformation. One thing is quite clear, that we can't go on as before. We can't continue in this way. We have to change. And because the American young people have recognized that you need to change, they managed to elect somebody who nobody would have thought a year ago would ever get into the White House, you know, in America. Because they all of a sudden recognize there is an urgent need to change, you see. And this can happen, but for awareness of the need, of the urgency of change, of the reality of change. So what I'm going to show you here very quickly, I also have a little thing which I've forgotten in the hotel, but if you can kind enough I have a lot of material here, but I'm not going to go into detail and all of that. We can leave it on your computer. You're welcome to save it and keep it here, you know, this material. So then afterwards, if you want to look at it, you can. I'm just going to sketch the main point. Let's go on to the next one. There are three propositions that I want to concentrate on. And let me just tell you very briefly. The first, this system in which we live is not sustainable. You know, the transformation is not a question of whether or not, it's a question of when. It's either chaos or transformation. The second, preparing for this minimally disruptive and positive transformation is urgent. Therefore, the urgency. And I want to talk particularly, I mentioned already a few things about the urgency, but I want to show you some slides about this. Okay? And the third point is what they call the human factor, is the mission, if you like, of the Club of Budapest. Because the preparations for a positive change must go on all levels in society. Must be the political, economic, as well as societal. But especially it has to go in civil society. I'm convinced, and it's interesting enough, Mikhail Gorbachev wrote the foreword to this little book that we are just now publishing called World Shift 2012. Don't look for it yet in the bookstores, but you can see it in the internet. There's an announcement of it. Because it's going to be published on 9/9/9, 9th of September 2009. You see? That's another key date. You see? And Gorbachev wrote in a foreword to it, don't trust your leaders to make the changes. You have to push them. You see? And he ought to know. You see? In fact, his whole system was pushed much further than he expected at the time. He didn't actually want, he told me often, I'm a reformist, I'm not a revolutionary. And yet what happened was a revolution, a very quick bifurcation point in Eastern Europe. So I think the key to it is on the individual level, on our own values, ethics, and views. A little bit more about that, but if I would do all of that, it would take me 2 hours at least, even if I do it fast. So I'm going to summarize it very quickly, and with a discussion, you can keep any of the points. Let's go on. The first point is unsustainability. This term is now becoming current. It's currency. People talk about things are not sustainable, and in my book, also the last book on the quantum shift in the global brain, you can change the world, all of that, I describe some elements, but these are known elements: economic, ecological, social, financial, unsustainability. We know them. So let's go on. I'll probably go very fast on this. The roots of unsustainability is the global warming, the climate change, you know, and connected with that, the scarcity of water in the world, and the polarization of society, the economic polarization. All of these are well-known factors. The warming projections, today you are at a point in terms of the surface temperature, which is historically is higher than it has been the last million years. And if the current processes continue, you might have a positive feedback. So one thing feeds into another and makes it still warmer. So you have to be very careful about what we do to the atmosphere today, so as not to have this enormous sudden explosion of the temperature. Okay, let's go on. Climate change, the impact on health, on agriculture, on forestry, on the water resources, on coastal areas. You may be well prepared in Holland for rise in water temperatures. I don't know. Perhaps you have several people who have put a thumb, you know, into the holes. But I do know that if there will be even half a meter rise, 300 million people in Asia, mostly in Bangladesh, will be homeless. You know, and some of the big cities in the world will be flooded. Okay, so polar ice, let's go on. You see the effect of that. We can go with that, the shrinking of the ice. Oh, just one element about the polar ice. The South Polar ice is a dangerous one. In the North Pole, most of the ice that's melting is floating on the North Sea. In the South Pole, the ice is on the shelf, on the Antarctic continental shelf. And what they have found about 6 months ago, a report was published in science magazines, that this water around the Antarctic is warmer than they expected, and it's melting the glaciers sufficiently so they start to slide. They're starting to slide into the water. 104 billion tons of ice, suppose that is the figure they give, per year is moving into the sea. Now if this would continue, within 10 years you'll have a 1 meter rise in sea levels. So, because that raises the level. Okay, all of these things show the projections, all of them show that the actual observations of the trends is a faster trend than the projection. Okay, let's go on. This is the sea level rise. This is the water scarcity. You can see how about a third of the human population today is living under conditions of water scarcity. They don't have safe water, they don't have drinking, for hygiene, for cooking, and this could move up to half. The gap between the haves and the have-nots, you can hit the next one, then you see it also, the protests, all that. Socioeconomic polarization, nearly 1/3 of the population lives on equivalent of $2 a day. At the same time, you have about 1,000 to 1,200 billionaires, in dollar or euro billionaires, whose combined holdings are equivalent to the income, if you can talk about income, of half the world population of 3 billion people. So enormous gaps. Okay. So problems are ecologic, economic, financial, all of those, put together, and it's just a question of which crisis will come up first. Okay, preparing for this transition, a little bit of theory, just a tiny bit. I come from systems theory and system science and evolution theory. And then you look at the situation, or whatever situation you take, as a system. Now, there are two kinds of systems, open and closed. Closed systems are only theory. There's no fully closed system in the universe, because every system, to some extent, is open to matter, energy, and information. But our planet is a very specific kind of a system. It's open to energy, but it's closed to matter. That means that there's a constant flow of energy into the planet, but matter doesn't leave the planet, unless you think of a couple of spaceships going to Mars, getting lost and not coming back. And nothing comes in. Let's hope nothing comes in, because the danger is that you get big bedrock, the meteor could be a cosmic catastrophe. There's a certain chance of that, but the time is so vast that we hope that there could be a couple of 100,000, if not million years before that happens. But so practical purposes, and it's open to energy. Let's go on to the next one. What happens then is that this planet, the biosphere of this planet, is so beautifully balanced. It makes use of all the energy to cycle the matter that's over here, by starting with the photosynthesis, which creates biomass. Other species eat the plants. There's a food chain. Everything gets used, all the energy gets used maximally to maintain the populations and to allow additional species also to come in. So the normal process is a diversification on the planet. And this has been going on to close to 4 billion years. And for the last 600 million years since the Cambrian, we have had vertebrates, we have had the complex kind of species. And for the past 30,000 years, Homo sapiens emerged among the Cro-Magnons and among the Neanderthals, and became the dominant species. Now, Homo sapiens has started something very curious. Just to show you that this didn't happen just yesterday. About 8,000 to 10,000 years ago, in the Levant, in the Middle East, riverine settled societies emerged. Why could they emerge? They didn't need to be nomadic. They didn't need to follow the animals. They managed to domesticate the animals and domesticate the plants. Domesticated plants means agriculture, you see. So they managed to seed the areas, most around the Nile, the Huanghe, the Yellow River, etc., the various big riverine civilizations. And they irrigate them, and they picked it out, they used it for food, they threw the waste into the rivers, and they hoped that it just goes away. They expected that it disappears. or they burned the waste, and then goes up into the air, and then the substance disappears. Okay? So the humanity started remanipulating, restructuring the environment. But we did it with relatively small numbers. Relatively small numbers. We had 1 billion people at 1850, you know. Now we have probably 7 billion today. And it's still growing at the rate of close to 90 million a year. But when you keep doing this with technologies and so many people, then it becomes very evident that what you throw away doesn't go away. It comes back to you. See, even the sea accumulates mercury and other toxic substances. When you burn something in the air, the CO2 and the other gases don't disappear. They stay in the atmosphere, and they create all kinds of problems, like the hothouse gases. So we actually, our behavior of using matter as though it was an open system, as though you could just pick it up, use it, throw it back, because you can always get new matter. It's not true. That's a big mistake. We ought to be using matter so that we recycle it, using the energy that flows into this, to the system, to the earth, to cycle and recycle everything. Let's go on. So this is the bifurcation diagram. Basically, a bifurcation diagram is something that's added to Darwinian evolution. Darwin talked about evolution by little steps, by step, you know. There is a chance mutation occurring, and the chance mutation improves the system somehow, and that becomes better adapted to the environment, and so on. And little by little, there is progress. Progress is linear. It goes in one direction. Let's go to the next. You'll just see more details. Here you have this kind of self-directed, what's the right word? Self-controlled or self-sustained, self-sustainable homeostatic processes. But they reach an end at a critical point. They no longer can control itself, no longer can sustain itself. Okay? And that point, there is a jumping evolution. You see, let's go on to the next. You just see evolution, jumping transition. And then you have a danger of a breakdown in the system. Or, go to the next one, or you go on and to find a new dynamic stability. And when you talk about a new civilization with new values and a new consciousness, the basic point is we have to find a system in which we can live sustainably. And that calls for a whole different set of values, different kinds of thinking. And this thing can happen very suddenly. All of history has been a series of sudden bifurcations, low of stability. One of the biologists who discovered this in the 1980s, he said that evolution, even biological evolution, is like the experience of the village policeman. There are long periods of boredom and short periods of terror. There are long periods of stability. Only our periods of stability on the human level are becoming shorter. And the periods of terror, of sudden transformation, are becoming more and more frequent. Because we are a more complex system, more sensitive. Let's go on. So all of history can be looked at as a series of stable states. The last stable state was 250, 300 years ago, the creation of the nation-state system. And that system was supposed to give you stability on the political and social and economic level. And now that system shows that it's no longer able to guarantee the survival of the species. So you need a transnational society. This is bifurcation diagram again, either breakdown or breakthrough. Okay, let's go on. So here we are at that point where this scissors opening up. It's either breaking down or going through to a breakthrough period. Let's move on. The need is to have a shift. The idea of a world shift is to move from this negative trend to a positive trend. And what we think in the Club of Budapest, that in a few years, Jim Lovelock thinks that we don't have any more time, that it's already passed. Jim Lovelock thinks that we have less than 1 billion people could survive on this planet. But we have 7, see. So we are basing our thinking on our effort on the idea that we still have a few years to manage to keep 7 billion people on this planet alive and developing. And for that, we need new ways of acting. So what we must do, and this is, I think, then afterwards we can go on to the discussion also, this is the key point. How do we launch a transformation? And I think it's centered on the individual, very much on civil society. The key motto here comes from Einstein. He says we can't solve a problem, it's the same kind of thinking that gives rise to the problem. He was originally talking about the nuclear weapons. He said the atomic bombs change everything in the world except our thinking. You see. We can say that our tremendously powerful technologies have changed everything around us, but our thinking is not changing fast enough. Of course it's changing. There are young people who have a different mentality. There are many NGOs, many organizations pulling together, trying to do something about it. But we need to have new thinking. 6 obsolete beliefs, very quickly. You're welcome then to elaborate on this if you like. The first one, the earth is an infinite source of resources, and think of wastes. You can take all you want from it, you can put everything into it that you want. And big business often acts like this was still true. You see. Okay, the second one. Nature can be manipulated like a giant mechanism. It's the mechanistic worldview, the materialistic mechanistic worldview. If you want to build a bridge, you start here and you build it like that. And this is what you can do with nature. You can manipulate genetically organisms, and then the new organisms will do exactly what you want them to do. Turns out that's not the way. This is Darwinian idea. Life is a struggle where the fittest survive. Actually, Darwin never meant by fit the strongest. Darwin meant by fit the most capable of change. See? But nowadays, in economics and in business, well, the fit is the one who has more money, is cleverer to manipulate, and it's just generally can out-compete the others. The market distributes benefits, the famous slogan that if I do well for myself, I play the market, somehow it will benefit you too, Turns out it doesn't work because the market is now very skewed. Money and technology can solve all problems. To some extent, still, that was the response to the economic financial crisis. Short term, yes. Short term, you can bail out a bank or an auto manufacturer. But in the long term, you won't be able to save this system just by pumping in more money, as long as the money is handled in the short-sighted, selfish way in which it just accumulates in fewer and fewer hands. Finally, the economic ends justify military means. Hopefully nobody believes that. Mr. Bush believes that, you see. But now I think hopefully we are past that particular era. Let's go on to the next one. Ethical frameworks, a new ethics, not only an ethics based on self-interest. I'm not thinking that we are going to become angels, but we're going to have self-interest. But our self-interest has to be embedded in the interest of the society. Just like an individual in a family is also a member of a family, also as a selfish individual. But his selfishness is limited, is mitigated by the fact that he's also a member of a family, or member of an enterprise, member of a community, member of a city, member of an ethnic group. You see, all of these, we have to have the sociocentric ethics. But we also have to take go back for a sec. We also, the other way, still back. One more back? No? There you are. Okay. We also have to embed this in ecocentric ethics. That means that we have to recognize that the biosphere is also a system of which we are a part. You see. And if the trade-offs between economy and the environment are very bad trade-offs, they're not real trade-offs. Often people say, okay, shall we keep the forest over here or shall we build a highway? Building a highway is good for the environment, keeping the forest is good for the ecology. But posing the question this way is a false dilemma, because ultimately we need a stable environment to be able to live on the planet. And so we need to conserve the forests. And we need to adapt our economic systems our technologies of transportation and everything else, so as to live within the economy. Just one term here is very interesting. In economy, in economics, you usually consider the economy as a subsystem. Or rather, sorry, let me put it this way. You usually consider the ecology, the biosphere, as a subsystem of the ecology. You see, economy is the whole thing. And one of the elements of that is the ecology. And that's completely turning things on its head. And humanity, with its economy, is a subsystem of it, you see. But it means a completely different kind of a thinking. You know? And therefore, even today, economists and ecologists mostly don't understand each other, you know, and they have all these fights. So we need what we call a planetary ethics, would be a system, this holistic ethics, which incorporates the ecological perspective with the economic, with the selfish, with the societal, also all of those elements. Okay, now let's go on, then we'll finish. I won't have time for this. The worldview, I'm contrasting the mechanistic, self-oriented, manipulating worldview with a systemic, organic, biological, holistic worldview. You get a very different concept of the individual, very different concept of society, very different concept of ethics, as I just said, and so on. So all of this means change the way we look at the world. Okay, and let's go on, because we need to have a new civilization. In my previous works, I talked about the shift from logos, a rationality-based world, to holos, a holism, a holistic thinking kind of a world. If the Mayans would say it would be shifts from the fifth to the sixth sun, you know, you can put it in quite different terms, but there is a major shift necessary, and that's the world shift. And that's the last thing to see, as a beautiful quote, we can't do better than that, William Blake, to see the world in a grain of sand and heaven in a wildflower, hold infinity in the palm of your hand and eternity in an hour. That's the holistic worldview. That's the biological, not only eat biologically, you also have to think biologically. Okay, so thanks for your attention. In the sun, what can you do? You can't change what's happening in the sun. So might as well just sit back and let's hope for the best, you know. But that's not the attitude I think we need, because I think we have a fighting chance. We have a pretty good chance. One thing that Jim Lovelock doesn't take into account, I must talk to him next time I'm in London, is the fact that not only nature, but even is an open system that can change very fast. We know that nature changes. We talk about abrupt change, you know, this sudden change, this sudden jumping transitions. And we see it in the ecology when all of a sudden a forest dies out, you know, the fish in a pond or in a lake all of a sudden die, and then the whole species is gone. And once the species has died, you can't bring it back. You know, Jurassic Park is a nice fiction, but you can't do it. So these sudden changes occur in nature, but I believe that society is capable of these sudden changes. And it's very good then to listen to those also from the past who talk about a major transition, a transformation that needs to take place. Because if we believe that it can take place, we have a much better chance of doing it. If we think that it can't be done, we won't do it.
Yeah. So we have no choice, huh?
Yes.
And this date, 2012, it kind of fascinates me. You wrote about the Akasha field.
Yeah.
How come the Mayas would know already that in 2012 some shift will occur? It sounds quite deterministic. It's already been said. Can you tell us something about this? And what is then our responsibility or our power to make a change?
Well, on this question, what I can do, I'll email to you this afterward that I received this morning from Arguelles, who explains this precisely. I've known about it in the main lines, but you know it goes into detail also. It's they didn't know about the particular kind of consciousness. They said there is a new consciousness necessary, you know. because these 5,162 or whatever number of years that each of these backtons, I'm very new to this, has taken, and each one is characterizing a certain kind of consciousness and gives rise to a certain kind of civilization. And the previous 5,162 years has taken us from the first big pyramids of Egypt to what Arguelles says to the Twin Towers. That was the phase, of human civilization. And now we are entering a new phase. So how did we know this? We don't know. But I think there is something in human intuition, especially when it goes over the centuries and it gets renewed. The same thing with great religions. The great spiritual systems, they know, feel, perceive something about reality that our conscious mind or left hemisphere of the brain has great difficulty at grasping.
And what will it look like doing in December 2012?
Yeah. On the Club of Budapest, we'll be having a meeting. We decided to make a series of meetings with the key on 9/9/9, now on September 9th, then 10/10/10, 11/11/11, and then it will be 21/12/12, you see. Then it's out because there's no 13th month, so you can't do it anymore, you see. What will you be doing? We'll be hoping that the sudden changes that will occur on the physics of the planet, because they will also occur, won't create a panic and won't be prepared and saying that now this is the end of the world, and therefore, just save what you can or outcompete, chaos. Chaos, people get very violent when it comes to chaos. It's interesting that astronomers are pretty sure that the sun's activity will be peak around that time. They talk about the coronal massive ejections. There's a lot of plasma will be flowing from the sun to the earth. These happen. It took several centuries usually between it happened. And the last time it happened, we didn't have all these electrical grids and high technology installations and networks on this planet, because these networks, these grids will be sensitive to this sudden energy input. It's like putting a lot of extra energy into your computer. It doesn't do it much good. I have a Macintosh like you have over there, and that has now a new magnetic charges. So we get an extra charge, the charger drops off. But before, I had this number of times when my computer was grilled, because I live out in the country in Italy, and every once in a while there's a storm, and it hits the electric line, and the lightning, and then it fries your answering service and your computer, whatever you have. So this kind of thing is, according to articles in Science magazine and in Nature and so on, could be happening in the November, December of 2012. We have to prepare also for that. But since we know that it's going to happen, we better also prepare the fact that it could happen, it will happen, and that it is not a signal for the end of the world. It's a signal that we can start something new. Not just physically, of course, but start something new as a society, as a species.
Okay. So actually you say in 2012, all these crises will sort of accumulate, or it will be the tipping point in which we have choice either to go maybe into chaos or go to a better world, to a mind shift, as you say. You were telling us there are now 7 billion. Do you believe the world can sustain all these people?
I think it could, but I don't know if it would or will. I think it could. We have enormous sources of energy at our disposal. We have fantastic technologies at our disposal. It's been calculated that 40 minutes of solar radiation reaching the surface of the planet provides enough energy, or equivalent amount of energy, So the total energy, commercial energy consumption of humanity for 1 year. Of course, we are far from being able to harness all that. But we could do a little bit better than we are doing now. And when I see solar panels going up, and I see these windmills coming up, and I see here in Holland there are quite a few of them, I think that that's a very positive sign. That's an important sign. I live in Tuscany, and I see all of a sudden, a couple of months ago, there were the hills, the highest level of the hills that I can see from the house, and it was fortunate with an area where you couldn't build, you're not supposed to build. So it was a forested, nice, natural area. All of a sudden I see a whole series of windmills on that. And some people say, isn't that awful? And I say, that's wonderful. You know, I find it's a sign that people are recognizing that you cannot just keep using coal-fired reactors to get your electricity, but there is the wind, why don't you use it, you know? So, there is movement in this direction. We have the energy, we can recycle, we can do an awful lot of things, we can be far more efficient. There are whole new economic systems on paper, you know, developed how we could do this, how one could live. We have to get rid of conceptions that the more money you have, the happier you are, or the greater you are. That used to be, when I went to America when I was in my teens, it's what used to be thought that if you drive a bigger car, then you're a better person, you know. And the more you consume, the better you are, you know, perhaps to some extent still there. But now you begin to recognize, if you drive a hybrid, maybe then you're a better person, you know. I mean, it's a change in values. And if you do this, I think we could do it, yes.
You sound so comfortably hopeful. Where do you get this hope? Why you think we can do this? What makes you think we can do this?
I can't resist repeating. I said, I'm an optimist, but I'm not sure that I'm right. So, a certain kind of cautious optimism with the ifs added. We can do it if. But the main thing is that, yes, we can do it. This slogan of, yes, we can, it's a good one, you know, basically. The optimism, where does it come? Because I have a sense, I don't know where it comes from. If you start thinking more in esoteric terms, you can think about, you know, some channeling or whatever. I don't know, but I have a strong sense that there's a mission awaiting us. It's an exciting time in history. We are called on to do something.
I hope we're lucky ones to do this mission. I would like to ask you some questions about this mind shift. You already told us something about it. In one of your books I read you had like two people, cultural creatives. Why did you, what can you tell us a mind shift that is necessary? You already told us some, but could you elaborate a little bit on that? And also, what are the hurting decisions we should take? The painful ones.
Well, you know, these concepts of the moderns and the cultural creatives, and the third kind is the traditionalists, who try to go back always to find the old, well-established values, go back to that. The moderns are typically the big business, big government mentality, you know, fast, efficient, make money, that's the way to go forward. You know, everything else is just talk. The cultural creatives are people whom I think most of you must be, because you wouldn't be here otherwise. People who are thinking, yes, we do need something else, we do need to live more responsibly, you know, with less and create a more viable communities and better lifestyles. And this is growing. We have been doing in the Club of Budapest a number of surveys, and my two colleagues who are here, Jonas Heimrath and Maria Shagi, have been involved in doing sociologically controlled research on the cultural creatives in various countries. In Holland, we have colleagues who are doing it. In Italy, we have done it. In the US, Paul Ray, the sociologists and opinion researchers, have been doing the surveys. We've been doing it in Japan and in Hungary. And it turns out that there are far more than business and politics give credit for. You know. So people advance than we think. They think, okay, if you have to make sacrifices, people won't do it. You know. But many people want to do it. It's just a little tiny little statistics, but quite interesting. When they first introduced the Toyota hybrid, the Prius in America, Toyota economists totally misgauged the demand for it. You know. They started manufacturing and shipping a certain amount. They thought this will satisfy the demand. It turned out to be, at the beginning, it had a year and a half of backlog. You have to wait that long before you get it. You know. Because many people, why do they want to have it? After all, it doesn't go faster. You know, it doesn't accelerate so big. You know. But it saves you money. You'll get back after 10 years, if you're lucky, you know. So it's not really that kind of rationality. There's something else behind it. You know? You just don't want to pollute. You don't want to waste. And that's the mentality where you don't just calculate, compute, you know, the effects of what you're doing, but you do it because that's the thing to do. In ethical theory, there is two kinds of theories about utilitarianism. Forgive me, but I also come from philosophy, I used to teach philosophy. We talk about rule utilitarianism and act utilitarianism. Act utilitarianism is when you do something, a certain act, and you see, does this act contribute to the sum total of happiness in society? You know? And then if it doesn't contribute to it, then you don't do it. You see, if it contributes to it, then there's something you do. And if it takes away from it, also then you don't do it. And that every time you compute it. And then that's the kind of pragmatic kind of a thinking which says, why should I use differentiated garbage disposal? For example, what will it hurt a can among the papers? You know? I mean, just one can. Rule utilitarianism says, I don't care what it affects as I don't compute that. There is a principle. I want to act on the principle. I want to act in an ethical way. That there are certain rules, principles of ethics, otherwise we won't change fast enough. You know? Otherwise we just keep using the old mentality of calculating costs and benefits.
Is there some way we could accelerate this mind shift? Is there, there is a lot of people now in Holland starting to meditate, and there are some movements. Is that the way we should go? Is it education, or is it ethical education? What is necessary to support this mind shift?
Well, this was going to be our second part, no, altogether, in a way, but let's get into it already.
The second part.
Okay. Yeah. It's up to you. I mean, this is certain. It's not for any one person. It's for me to say. There are many things. You can evolve. It's a nice general saying, and they say, my gosh, just this abstract thing. Evolve your consciousness. Many ways of doing that. One of the ways is to enter into altered states of consciousness, or to appreciate that these altered states of consciousness bring you something that's valuable, that's real, and that's interesting. An example for Holland is very interesting about this phenomenon of the NDEs, the near-death experiences. We have had one of the so-called creative members of the Club of Budapest was Dr. Pim van Lommel for a long time. Been coming and talking to our meetings and describing his discoveries and what he found about what happens to people when they have these near-death experiences. He says that nobody believes him. He can't get through. Then he managed to publish an article in a well-known English magazine, The Lancet, and then he published a book in Holland, which is now a bestseller. So it's an interesting sign of the times. That's what used to be dismissed as pure fantasy or esoteric. It's now taken to the extent seriously that people are discussing it and want to know something about it. The same thing could apply to meditation. Same thing to apply to spiritual experience altogether. I once wrote a book jointly based on a dialogue with Stanislav Grof and Peter Russell. And Stan Grof said, we talked about the religious experience. And Stan Grof said, religious experience, if somebody would really have a real experience in church, the priest would probably go and tell him to go see a psychiatrist. You know? Religions have left out this deep experiential factor, but yet its base is the basis of all religion, basis of spirituality, the sense that we are part of something, that we are belonging to a larger, living, evolving universe. I don't know what the question was, but
well, maybe
I got that.
Do you think it is necessary that people, that it's part of this mind shift, that people practice more or do all this, get also this spiritual transformation? Is this spiritual transformation a part of the transformation that is necessary? Is it something we have to go through to be able to make this a better planet?
Well, there are rather painful ways of doing the transformation, of almost dying, you know. Another good way of doing it is to go on a space mission, because the astronauts who come back, you know, they also have a different mentality altogether. Ed Mitchell is a good friend who was the astronaut captain, a captain of Apollo 14. He has a completely different mentality. He founded the Institute of Noetic Sciences. He left NASA, you know, afterwards. Well, but these are the more out of the way methods of gaining an experience. But why not enter into your body, into your mind? Why not try to concentrate on yourself and on your experience, and try to get rid of this preoccupation with what needs to be done? Henry Kissinger at one point said that the problem with politics is that the urgent overwhelms the important. It's still overwhelmed the important in our personal life also. I'm being told that by my people around me, that I should stop running around after things that need to be done and just go back and try to evolve my own mind. But I have this sense that things, the ideas and the sense of mission is there for me, you know, it's coming. But I know that many people are rushing about, trying to compete, trying to make do in this world. One thing after another, always chase a materialist, you know, old-fashioned kind of a value. That, I think, is a great block toward a better kind of living. Let me give you one little source here, which is not published in a book form, but you can download it from the internet, which is a little book that I've done with an Italian entrepreneur who got one of the green prizes at the World Economic Forum in Davos last fall. We decided to write a book jointly about how you can be happy and shift and be responsible, you know, live well. Because most people think if you are going to shift, you are going to be deprive yourself of something. You have to be unhappy, you know. So you can download this in 5 languages, not Dutch, but here everybody knows English anyway. You can download it also in English under www.shiftinbliss.com. Shift in bliss, in one word. Shift as S-H-I-F, and then bliss, B-L-I-S-S. Shift.com, yeah.
One last question before we go to the audience for any questions.
My name is Luc Sala, and I happen to be in your book. You talk about the Akashic field, multidimensionality. If I say this, evolution is the remembrance of the future.
Okay.
Evolution is remembering the future. If that is true, is our present state that we're in, which is a fearful state for the last hundreds of years, which leads to this economic crisis, among other things, is that of what we already know.
Wow. Wow. I don't understand it.
This is now deep philosophical, metaphysical questions. I personally, I'm a Whiteheadian in this respect, taking my ideas from Whitehead's organic metaphysics, which in turn he was using Einstein and physics theories as a basis for it. I believe that the totally mechanistic, that everything is determined. There's no predetermination. I believe that the future is predetermined. I believe that there is a certain element of freedom in choosing the future. But it's not random, and it's not totally. There are pathways that you can choose. And when you get to these bifurcation points, then the past no longer determines the future. I had arguments, by the way, on this, friendly discussions with Ilya Prigozhin on this point, because for him, a bifurcation point is a total break. The past doesn't enter. The current state of the system doesn't enter. The environment of the system doesn't enter. Nothing counts except random so-called fluctuations or variations in the state of the system that decides the bifurcation. Now, I believe that the past determines the range of options that we have as into the future. Not everything is possible. We don't become either all of a sudden or angels all of a sudden. Or we can't make some kind of a total utopian. But certain things are possible and there are choices above us. So I believe, and this is sort of the really Whiteheadian statement, that the past is always present. Because to me, this Akashic field is a memory field at the same time. Everything that's ever happened is somehow conserved in a information. It's like on the internet, things that you enter on.
Yeah, but then the future must also be present in the Akashic field. If the future is present in the Akashic field, then we are, and everything is influenced by the past, but also by the future. And as a physicist, you know, time minus or minus plus doesn't make any difference in the equations.
I know.
And if that is true, then it feels like the world is now anticipating that change that you're talking about, and that we react in a way, we become afraid, we become fearful.
Mm. Yeah. -1 or +1 in physics equations, yes. When you got to biology and you got to evolutionary theory, time enters. Time becomes a factor. And then, of course, what happens in the future can, but need not be, may or may not be determined by the past. That's the question then. But it's not automatically predisposed that everything that could possibly happen will happen. Some of the things will happen. I believe that there is this element of indeterminism. It's a very deep debate, because classical physics, as you know, was Pascal and Laplace. You know, if you give me the state of the universe at any one point, I'll tell you what it will be at any time. It's all a matter of computation. You know. But then this evolution points with chaotic attractors. Attractors are not determined by the system.